The steam rose from the industrial sink in thick, warm clouds as Maria Santos scrubbed the last of the dinner plates from the evening rush. It was nearly midnight at Romano's Italian restaurant, and the kitchen had finally quieted after another busy Saturday night. The servers had gone home, the cooks had cleaned their stations, and now it was just Maria alone with towers of dishes and the soft hum of the overhead lights. Maria had been working as a dishwasher at Romano's for 8 months, ever since she'd arrived in the city, with nothing but a worn backpack and $20 in her pocket. At 19, she was supporting not only herself, but also sending money back home to help her younger siblings finish school. The work was hard, her hands were permanently wrinkled from the hot water, and her back ached from bending over the deep sinks, but she was grateful for the steady paycheck and the leftover food that kept her from going hungry. Tonight, like most nights, Maria found herself alone in the vast kitchen as she worked through the mountain of dishes. The solitude didn't bother her. In fact, she preferred it this way. When the kitchen was empty and quiet, she could let her guard down and indulge in the one thing that made the long hours bearable: singing. Maria had always loved music. Back home in her small village, she had sung in the church choir and at local festivals, her voice carrying across the plaza and drawing crowds who would stop whatever they were doing just to listen. But here in the city, working double shifts and living in a tiny studio apartment she shared with 2 other girls, there was rarely time or space for music, except for these late-night moments in the restaurant kitchen. As Maria picked up a large serving bowl, she began to hum softly, the melody of an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. The acoustics in the kitchen were surprisingly good, with the high ceilings and stainless steel surfaces creating a natural resonance that made even her quiet humming sound rich and full. The humming gradually gave way to actual words, sung in her native Spanish. As Maria lost herself in the familiar rhythm of washing and rinsing, she picked up a coffee cup, one of dozens she would clean that night, and began using it as a makeshift microphone, singing into it as she scrubbed away the lipstick stains and coffee rings. Her voice grew stronger and more confident as she worked, filling the empty kitchen with a hauntingly beautiful melody about home and hope and dreams that seemed impossible to reach. Maria's voice had a quality that was both powerful and delicate, capable of soaring to incredible heights, while maintaining a warmth that seemed to wrap around anyone who heard it. She was so absorbed in her song that she didn't notice the figure standing in the doorway leading to the dining room, watching her with an expression of complete amazement. Marco Benedetti had built his culinary empire from nothing, starting with a single food truck and expanding over 15 years into a chain of award-winning restaurants across 3 states. He was known throughout the industry, not just for his innovative cuisine but for his perfectionist attention to detail and his ability to spot talent in the most unexpected places. Tonight, Marco had returned to Roma's flagship restaurant to retrieve some contracts he'd forgotten in his office. He'd been walking through the darkened dining room when he heard the singing drifting from the kitchen. At first, he'd assumed it was a radio or perhaps a phone playing music, but as he moved closer, he realized it was a live voice of incredible beauty and power. Marco stood in the shadows of the doorway, transfixed by what he was hearing. The young woman, he recognized her as one of the dishwashers, though he'd never spoken to her directly, was singing with a passion and skill that took his breath away. Her voice had the kind of raw, untrained brilliance that couldn't be taught in any music school, the sort of natural gift that appeared perhaps once in a generation. Maria finished her song and reached for another stack of plates, beginning to hum a different melody as she worked. This one was more upbeat, a folk song from her childhood that her father used to sing while working in the fields. She swayed slightly as she sang, her movements graceful despite the industrial setting, and her practical work clothes. Marco remained frozen in place, afraid that any movement might break the spell of this unexpected performance. He had attended countless concerts by world-renowned singers, had dined with celebrities and met famous musicians, but he had never heard anything quite like this music performed, not for an audience or for money, but purely for the joy of creating something beautiful in the midst of difficult circumstances. As Maria reached the chorus of her song, her voice soared to incredible heights, the notes seeming to dance off the stainless steel surfaces and fill every corner of the large kitchen. She was completely lost in the music now, her eyes closed as she sang, the coffee cup still clutched in her soapy hands like a precious instrument. When the song ended, the kitchen fell into a silence that seemed to echo with the memory of her voice. Maria opened her eyes and reached for the next item to wash, and that's when she saw him. Tall man in an expensive suit standing in the doorway, staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Maria's face flushed crimson as she realized she'd been caught. She quickly set down the cup and turned back to the sink, mumbling an apology in broken English. "Sorry, sir. I know, sing loud. I clean fast. I promise." "Please don't apologize," Marco said, stepping into the kitchen. His voice was gentle, almost reverent. "That was the most beautiful thing I've heard in years. You have an extraordinary gift." Maria kept her eyes fixed on the dishes, too embarrassed to look at him directly. She recognized him now, Mr. Benedetti, the owner of the restaurant, though she'd only seen him from a distance during his occasional visits to check on operations. "You know, fire me?" she asked quietly, her hand still moving mechanically through the washing motions. "I work good. I clean everything perfect." Marco moved closer, his expression softening at her obvious fear. "Fire you? Maria, isn't it? I'm not going to fire you. I want to help you." Now Maria did look up, confusion clear in her dark eyes. "Help me? With your music? With your voice? You shouldn't be hiding a talent like that in a kitchen at midnight. You should be sharing it with the world." Marco paused, studying her face carefully. "Have you ever had voice lessons? Performed professionally?" Maria shook her head. "I sing in church back home. Nothing professional. I no have money for lessons." Marco felt his heart clench at the quiet dignity in her voice, the way she stated her circumstances as simple fact without self-pity or complaint. "What if I told you that could change? What if there was a way for you to pursue your music while still supporting yourself and your family?" Maria stared at him, afraid to hope. "I know, understand." Marco smiled, the kind of smile that came from recognizing a moment that would change everything. "I have connections in the music industry, Maria, friends who manage talent, who run recording studios, who could help someone with your voice find opportunities. But more than that, I want to help you personally. I'd like to pay for voice lessons, help you develop your gift properly." Maria's hands were shaking now, and she gripped the edge of the sink to steady herself. "Why you help me? You know me." "Because I recognize something special when I see it," Marco said simply, "and because I believe that when we're blessed enough to witness real talent, the kind of natural gift that you have, we have a responsibility to help nurture it." Marco reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, setting it on the counter beside her. "My personal number is on there. I want you to think about what I've said. In the meantime, I'm going to make some calls. There's a voice coach I know, one of the best in the city, specializes in working with natural talent like yours." Maria picked up the card with trembling fingers, staring at it as if it might disappear. "I still work here. Still send money to family. Of course. We'll work around your schedule until you're ready to make music your primary focus. This is about giving you choices, Maria, not taking away your security." For the first time since he'd startled her, Maria smiled, a radiant expression that transformed her entire face. "Thank you, Mr. Benedetti. I know, believe this real." Marco chuckled softly. "It's very real. And Maria, don't stop singing while you work. The kitchen sounds empty without your voice." As Marco walked back through the darkened restaurant toward his car, he could already hear Maria's voice rising again from the kitchen's room, and more confident now, as if his words had given her permission to truly let her gift shine. He pulled out his phone and began scrolling through his contacts, already planning the calls he would make in the morning to help launch the career of the most talented singer he had ever discovered, washing dishes in his own restaurant. Sometimes, Marco reflected as he drove through the quiet city streets, the most extraordinary gifts came in the most ordinary packages, revealed in moments when people thought no one was watching and sang, simply because their hearts were too full of music to remain silent.